had a tough shooting start to these playoffs. How did you correct that tonight with some mental toughness in a tough physical matchup?
I just continue to be confident in myself and know the work that I put in to get to this point, and fall back on that and my teammates.
Watching you and Alyssa Thomas, I mean, this is like a heavyweight wrestling match out here. How hard is it right now with her defending you in the space you're trying to find?
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, AT's obviously a great all-around player, and she makes it tough for me, but I just want to continue to be aggressive. And
Okay, first of all, I know the history behind the WNBA. I know that both of those cities have had teams of 4 and they got us where we're at. So, I'm thankful for that. Stop scrolling right now because what Sophie Cunningham just did to Breanna Stewart's face is the only thing the basketball internet is talking about tonight. There was no buffer between them, no teammate holding her back, no PR-friendly half-step-in to defuse the moment. Sophie walked straight up, locked eyes with the 2-time MVP, and let her have it in front of 16,000 people and roughly 40 cell phone cameras. The WNBA front office is not sleeping tonight. The league office is not sleeping tonight, and neither is Stewart because the angle that finally leaked out of the upper bowl tells a story the broadcast desperately tried to bury between commercial breaks. Stick with me through this entire breakdown because by the time we get to the end, you are going to understand exactly why Indiana is furious, why New York is suddenly very quiet, and why the rematch on the schedule 3 weeks from now just turned into the most anticipated regular season game of the entire 2026 calendar. This game was supposed to be a controlled preseason night. That was the entire pitch. The Liberty were checking their championship engine for any rattles. The Fever were introducing their new identity around Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston and a deeper, meaner second unit. The plan on both sidelines was simple. A light minutes, a light whistles, a light handshake at center court. Everybody flies home. Nobody gets hurt. The marketing department gets its highlight package, and the rotations get clarity for opening night. That plan lasted about 18 minutes of game clock because once Sophie Cunningham went down clutching her ribs and the Indiana trainer sprinted across the hardwood with that particular kind of jog, you only see when someone on the staff is genuinely scared the entire emotional temperature of this league flipped in real time. You could feel it in the building. You can feel it on the fan footage. The crowd noise drops. Bench stands up, and every coach on both sidelines suddenly remembers that preseason or not, this is still a contact sport played by competitors who have memories that go back years. Now, watch the actual play because this is where the story really starts. Stewart is establishing position on the elbow extended. Sophie is fronting her. The entry pass is already in the air toward the opposite block and the possession is functionally over. The ball is gone. Sophie has her hands down, no leverage, completely defenseless, already starting. Rotate her hips to sprint back in transition. And that is the exact moment Stewart's right elbow does something it absolutely should not do. It does not drift. It does not float upward as a natural consequence of a box out. It travels. There is intent in the motion. There is rotation through the shoulder, and there is follow-through after the contact, which is the single most damning piece of evidence in any officiating review. You can hear the impact from the second row on the fan video. That dull, thudding sound that every basketball player in the world recognizes immediately and every basketball parent in the world dreads. Sophie hits the floor. The air leaves her lungs. For about 4 full seconds, the Fever bench just stands there frozen because nobody quite processes what they just saw. Then Aaliyah Boston steps forward. Then Coach Stephanie White starts walking. And then the only person who actually mattered in that moment, Sophie herself, plants one hand on the hardwood and pushes herself back up. And here is the part the league absolutely does not want trending on every sports app in North America by morning. Sophie did not go to the bench. She did not take the tunnel. She did not accept the trainer's hand or the towel that was already being offered. She turned, ribs still wrapped in her own forearm for support, and she walked directly at Breanna Stewart, not toward the official, not toward her own bench, at Stewart. No teammate could reach her in time because nobody on the Fever roster expected her to do it. She got chest to chest, pointed a finger an inch from Stewart's nose, and unloaded every single word she had been holding in since the previous season's playoff series. We do not have clean audio yet, and I am not going to pretend to read lips for you, but the body language tells you everything you need to know. Stewart did not say a word back. She did not smirk. She did not laugh it off the way stars sometimes do when a role player gets in their face. She just took 2 slow steps backward and let the officials separate them. And in that single frame, in that 2C window where the most accomplished forward of her generation backed up from a 6th woman with a bruised rib cage, the entire power dynamic of this rivalry quietly rewrote itself in front of a national audience. Now, zoom out with me for a second, because this story is not actually about 2 players. It is about a whole roster context that makes the moment hit 10 times harder than it would in any other game on the schedule. Caitlin Clark was already on the bench. When the elbow landed, she had a heating pad wrapped around her lower back, not a brace, not a wrap, a heating pad. And Stephanie White's post-game line was that the rest was precautionary and entirely planned. Maybe Aaliyah Boston had rolled her ankle on a closeout about 10 minutes earlier and was being evaluated in the tunnel. Kelsey Mitchell was in foul trouble. The Fever's entire offensive identity was sitting on a bench, while Sophie was the last upright physical presence on the floor. Everybody in that building knew it. Every coach on the Liberty bench knew it. Stewart absolutely knew it. So when an elbow goes up on the one player whose stated job, whose entire on-court personality, whose contract value is built around keeping stars upright and keeping the rough stuff honest, this stops being a basketball play and starts being a message. And Sophie answered that message right there on the floor in real time in front of 16,000 fans and a phone camera that has now been viewed more than 9 million times in less than a day. Here is the part nobody in the league office wants to defend on camera tomorrow morning. That play got called a common foul. A common foul. No flagrant review at the scorer's table. No ejection, no technical for the confrontation that followed. No post-game fine announced from 5th Avenue. Official number 27, the trail referee on that side of the floor, was standing roughly 10 ft away with a clean, unobstructed sight line, and somehow saw absolutely nothing worth a second look. I have been watching basketball at every level for a long time. I have called games at the youth level. I have friends who officiate high school varsity tournaments in 3 different states. And every single one of them has duetted that clip tonight, saying the exact same thing, which is that the play would have ejected Stewart out of any half-decent varsity gym in America before she finished her follow-through. Kathy Angelbert's office released a 2-sentence statement late tonight that read, and I am paraphrasing here, the league will review the footage and respond as appropriate. Fans are completely finished with the league will review the footage and respond as appropriate. That phrase has been said about Caitlin Clark contact, about Angel Reese contact, about Brittany Grier contact, about Nafisa Collier contact, and the response has consistently been silence followed by a quiet memo actually reads. The credibility well is dry. The patience is gone. And the moment any single one of these stars suffers a real season-altering injury on a play that gets waved off, the legal exposure on this league is going to be a story that lives on a different kind of channel than mine. And the internet right now is genuinely feral. I have been refreshing for the last 2 hours, and the volume is unlike anything I have seen since the Reese-Clark playoff cycle. Fever Nation is calling for a multi-game suspension, a public apology, and a league-funded medical update on Sophie's ribs by morning. Liberty fans are split. And credit to the honest ones, because at least half of them are openly admitting on the timeline that the elbow looked bad on the slow-motion replay. Former players from the early 2000s era, the women who played through the Lisa Leslie and Lauren Jackson and Tina Thompson years, are quote tweeting the clip saying that this is exactly the kind of physical edge the modern league has been quietly missing, and also exactly the kind of officiating laziness that is going to get a marquee player carted off before Memorial Day. Coaches at the college level are subtweeting it. Two NBA players whose names I am not going to drop because the tweets are still up have liked the original post. The reach is enormous. The conversation is everywhere. And the comment section under this very video is about to be a war zone. So drop a 1 in the comments below if you think Sophie was completely justified in walking up on Stewart. Drop a 2 if you think she crossed a line by escalating it physically. And drop a 3 if you genuinely believe both. Things can be true at the same time because that is honestly where I am sitting right now, and I want to know if I am alone on the fence. Let me give you the part of this story that is not getting enough airtime, which is what this means for Sophie Cunningham as a player, as a brand, and as a leader on this FIBA roster. Sophie has spent her entire career being characterized in two completely opposite ways depending on who you ask. To the fans who watch her play 48 minutes a week, she is a connector, a culture setter, a glue piece who absorbs the dirty defensive assignments nobody else on the roster wants. To the casual viewer who only sees the highlight that pops on social media, she is a chirper, a face puller, a player who lives somewhere on the line between competitive and chaotic. Both of those things have always been a little true and a lot incomplete. What tonight did in one possession and one stare down was reframe her in the public eye as something the league has been missing for a long time, which is an actual on-court protector with the credibility to back the roll up. She got hit. She got back up. She walked at the bigger star. She did not throw a punch, did not grab a jersey, did not give the officials a single legitimate reason to send her to the locker room early. She just made it absolutely clear in front of cameras and witnesses and a national audience that the price of going through Indiana stars is going to include going through her first. That is not a publicity stunt. That is a job description, and she just did it on the biggest stage preseason can offer. And honestly, the Stewart side of this conversation deserves the same level of fairness because I am not going to sit here and pretend Breanna Stewart is some cartoon villain. She is one of the greatest forwards of this entire era of basketball. She has carried franchises. She has carried national teams. She has played through injuries that would have ended other careers. And she has generally conducted herself in public with a level of professionalism that the league has been lucky to have as a marketable face. So either tonight was a genuinely uncharacteristic loss of composure under preseason pressure, which happens to even the best players, or it was a calculated piece of physical messaging from a veteran who saw a FIBA roster missing 2 of its 3 best players and decided to set a tone. Both readings are valid. Both readings have evidence behind them. And the reason this clip is going to live on this internet for at least another 48 hours is because the basketball world is genuinely split on which reading is correct. And that is exactly the kind of ambiguous, debate-friendly, screenshot-shareable moment that algorithms feed on for days. Stephanie White's post-game podium was something else entirely, and I want you to picture this carefully because the body language matters. She walked in late. She did not bring a printed stat sheet. She answered the first 3 questions in the kind of clipped 2-word sentences a coach uses when she is choosing between professionalism and a fine. When the 4th question finally got to the elbow on Sophie, she paused for what felt like a full 10 seconds, took a sip of water and said only that the league would handle it through the appropriate channels. That is coach speak, for I am furious and I do not trust myself to say a single additional word on camera right now. Joe Mazzulla over in New York gave a much shorter podium, said the play was unfortunate, said Stewart is a competitor, said preseason is preseason, and walked off the stage in under 90 seconds. Both teams know exactly what just happened. Both teams know exactly what comes next. And both teams know that the next time these two organizations share a floor, the entire league is going to be watching with one finger hovering over the record button. So let's talk about that next game because the schedule makes this story absolutely unavoidable. Indiana and New York are slated to meet again in 3 weeks on a nationally broadcast Saturday window. Sophie says she will be cleared. The FIBA medical staff has not yet released an official rib update, but the early reporting is bruising. No fracture, day-to-day evaluation with a realistic expectation of a return by week 1 of the regular season. Stewart has not said a single public word since walking off the floor tonight, which is itself a tell because Stewart almost always speaks. The Liberty PR team is reportedly debating whether to have her address it on her own podcast or wait for the league's discipline ruling first. Either way, the moment those two players cross paths on the court again, every camera in that arena, every phone in that lower bowl, every scout, every executive, every former player on a TV panel is going to be locked on that single first possession. There will be a tip-off. There will be a matchup assignment. And there will be a moment where Sophie and Stewart end up within 2 feet of each other for the first time since she walked at her tonight. And whatever happens in that moment is going to be replayed for the rest of the season. This is also a defining test for Kathy Angelberg and the entire league office, and I want to be very direct about that. The commissioner has spent the last 18 months telling reporters that the league is entering a new era of accountability, transparency, and player safety. The league has hired more officials. The league has reportedly invested in additional training. The league has leaned into a more aggressive media strategy and a more aggressive marketing push around the new generation of stars. None of that means anything if a clear slow-motion multi-angle elbow to a player's ribs gets a common foul on the call sheet and a 2-sentence boilerplate response from headquarters. Fans can see the gap between the marketing language and the on-court reality. Players can see it too. And the moment players stop trusting the league to protect them, you do not get a quieter game. You get a more physical game because everyone starts policing themselves the way Sophie just did tonight. The league office has roughly 72 hours to issue a discipline ruling that actually matches the footage. If they do, the conversation calms down by midweek. If they do not, this becomes the dominant storyline of the entire opening month of the season, and the league will have nobody to blame but the choices made inside its own discipline meetings. Before I close this out, I want to address the Caitlin Clark piece directly because I know that is going to be in the comments and I want to get ahead of it. Caitlin was on the bench when this happened. She did not throw a single elbow. Heat.